Thank you all very much for that very warm welcome, and let me add my thanks to all the co-sponsors and our hosts, and especially to all of you tonight. My job as moderator is very simple. I'm going to first introduce the speakers to you, but in doing so, I'm going to give you the context for why you're going to hear 4 speakers and how their talks are going to be very closely interrelated. But before I do that, let me give you a larger context. Let's imagine it's about 10 years ago, and you're a gas operator, just out of tremendous success in a shale formation in a land far, far away called Texas. And you find yourself right down here in Washington County, Pennsylvania, and you say, if it worked in Texas, it should work here. And surprise, it doesn't. So you try again, using American ingenuity and innovation, and sure enough, you hit it big. 1849, Sutter's Mill, gold fever. Fast forward 10 years. 7,800 Marcellus wells later in Pennsylvania, 4,000 of them in production. None in New York. Now that can either be the singular most stupid thing for a state to do, or it could be a very, very wise thing. And the whole purpose of tonight is to show you what the industry has known for a few years, what we presume that the New York State DEC also knows, and we think what the governor also knows, is that the experience of those 7,800 wells in Pennsylvania have taught us quite a bit. So I'm going to introduce each speaker in turn and tell you why each one of them is going to give you a tremendous amount of their experience, their judgment, their knowledge, and their technical capabilities to explain now, 10 years later, what we've learned from Pennsylvania and what we can use to estimate the remaining potential in New York. So our first speaker is James Northrop. Most people know him by Chip. Chip did his bachelor's degree at Southern Methodist University. He also studied at Brown and the University of Manchester and got an MBA at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Chip has been an entrepreneur and private investor in solar energy companies, propane fuel system companies, oil and gas exploration and production, onshore and offshore oil rigs, and tech startup companies for over 30 years. So we're going to lead off with Chip because he's going to set the stage. He's going to tell you how does a set of investors and a set of operators, not one, not two, but 70 or 80 of them, how do they see a place like that in 2002, 2003, and then how do they act after that over the next 10 years? This is tradition. This is not new. A play like the Marcellus is not unlike a play in the Barnett Shale, not unlike a play in the Haynesville Shale, not unlike oil and gas plays all over the world. There's a certain procedure, a motif, if you will, that companies go through, and Chip is tremendously experienced to be able to explain that all to you. In doing so, he's going to lay the table, set the table for the next speaker, because geology rules. All that hype and excitement, that gold fever, originating from one well in southwestern Pennsylvania, had to get translated into reality. Geology rules. You can hope for the best, you can speculate for the best, but you can't get what Mother Nature hasn't provided. Therefore, we do have to talk about geology. It's crucial. And our geologist for the evening is Brian Brock. Brian did his Bachelor of Science degree in geology at St. Lawrence. He did graduate study at Carleton University and Caltech. And he's a hard rock geologist, which has nothing to do with music. His field work is in igneous and high-grade metamorphic petrology of the Precambrian era. He's worked on both terrestrial and moon rocks, and has mapped for both the New York State Geological Society in the Adirondacks and out west with the U.S. Geological Survey. By now you've understood that this is not one person talking about one thing, it's 4 people talking about 4 things, which means you really have to have some patience, some energy, some concentration, because this is not like a 50-minute lecture at Cornell. You're not just going to get one excellent professor, you're getting 4, but you have to figure out how to connect what they're saying to each other, and they're going to do a really good job of helping you. The next person is Jerry Acton. Jerry did a Bachelor of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering with the U.S. Naval Academy. He then did a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering at North Carolina State University. After a stint in the Navy, he joined IBM Federal Systems in Owego, New York, and worked there for 24 years as a systems engineer. For those of you who don't know what systems engineering is, you're going to find out tonight. He then went to Lockheed Martin and worked for another 16 years again as a senior systems engineer. He's responsible for the architecture, has been responsible for the architecture, requirements, design, and operational performance of a wide variety of large, complex, governmental and commercial systems, very much like we're talking about tonight. Jerry is the guy that ran all the numbers. He's the guy that put together the model, took into account everything that Lou and Chip has told him and everything he's learned from Brian about geology, and is the guy that's going to tell you by forecasting numerically what the potential is for shale gas development in New York from a quantitative point of view and a technical point of view. That will lead to our last speaker, Lou Allstadt. Lou did a Bachelor of Science degree at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and then an MBA at the Columbia University Graduate School of Business. Lou spent his entire career in the oil and gas industry, first as Executive Vice President of Mobil Oil Corporation and the Operating Officer for Exploration and Production in the US, Canada, and Latin America. In that role, he had oversight of all of Mobil's oil and gas drilling, both onshore and offshore in the Western Hemisphere. He was then put in charge of Mobil's worldwide supply, trading, and transportation organization and was present during the merger of Mobil and Exxon. So what Lou's going to tell you, to sum up, is where we think now, given what the industry knows that you're going to know in the next hour, where they're likely to go in Pennsylvania, what they're likely to do, who's going to win and who's going to lose, and how we can project that all into New York by way of potential production from the Marcellus and the Utica. Last thing I have to say, I alluded to 50-minute lectures at Cornell. So you have to pay attention. 4 concatenated, interwoven talks. You have to pay attention not because you pay tuition, but because you pay taxes. And you want to educate yourself tonight so that you know how your legislators are risking your capital. So with that, let me introduce Chip to kick off the talk tonight.